Anxiety triggers can be complex, often rooted in past experiences and conditioning. Welcome to Normalize the Conversation. I'm your host, Francesca Reicheter, and today I'm joined by author and licensed therapist with expertise in anxiety, depression, and trauma, Laura Rhodes-Levin. In this episode, we're diving into anxiety triggers. We'll equip you with the essential tools to not only understand your triggers, but also to identify who installed them and, more importantly, how to unwire them. Laura, thank you so much for joining me today. I am super excited for our conversation, but before we begin, I just want to check in. How are you really?
Ooh, how am I really? Well, I hate to start us off with kind of a bummer, but my sister passed away a few months ago, my little sister. And so I'm really putting my emotional tools to work and sort of observing it happening and giving myself permission to cocoon when I need to and reserve that energy so that I can fulfill my main purpose, which is to be here with you and talk about freedom from anxiety and really being able to enjoy your life no matter what.
I am so sorry for your loss, but I love how you made the time, first of all, to give yourself that space to really implement your tools and then still show up and help so many people. I mean, anxiety is something that, whether it's a diagnosis or just something you experience on a day to day, it is something that all of us will experience as human beings. And it's so important to understand what it is, what these triggers are, and how we can unwire our brain to be able to not allow that anxiety to control us.
Yeah, because anxiety is built in. It's our fight flight response, but we're not used to checking in about what's making me fight or what's making me run right now. And so your anxiety is actually, I like to think of it like a fever. You don't just treat the symptom and ignore. You take care of yourself. You go, okay, there's a fever, there's something wrong, what is it? And you figure it out. And your anxiety is the same. Your anxiety is your warning bell.
Yeah, it is. And it's so silly to me that we often ignore it and we think,
Right?
right?
Thank you.
Because it's telling us something. Our body is telling us something. Maybe we are feeling overwhelmed. Maybe we're afraid. Maybe our body's trying to protect us from something. But if we just ignore it and we let it fester, at least for me, if I ignore those early warning signs that I'm starting to get anxious over something, it will turn into a full attack later where I am struggling to be able to function. I'm struggling to catch my breath. My heart rate's going really fast and I'm having chest pains, convinced I'm having a heart attack.
Exactly. And then if you ignore that, then you get the migraines and the sleeplessness, and then comes the IBS and the emotional eating. And our bodies, our bodies are our best way out of our thinking anxiety.
They really are. And I love how you said it goes into those migraines, the sleepless nights. IBS, it is connected to our physical health. So
Absolutely.
although we want to prioritize our physical health all the time, when we're ignoring our mental health, we are not prioritizing our physical health. So we need that balance.
Exactly. Start at the top, it'll work your way down.
Oh, I love that. Start at the top. So, first of all, we're talking about anxiety. For people who don't know what that is, can you give us a little definition?
Sure. Um, Anxiety is so different for everybody, but as I said, it is our flight fight response. And what I've probably said ad nauseum is, you know, imagine that you meet a lion for the first time. That goes into your limbic system and it stays there. It permanently lodges in your amygdala so that the next time you see a lion, you run. But the more and more lions, air quote lions, we encounter, the more and more we become hyper vigilant. And now all of a sudden, it could be a bunny, it could be the wind, but we're gone, we're out of there because our anxiety has built up and snowballed. And in worst case scenario, your world is just so small. You're not going to leave your house. You're going to stop socializing. You're just going to make your world tiny. And before that, it starts with, well, I'm not going to go on trips. I'm just going to stay in my neighborhood. I'm only going to see a few people. And then there's just that social anxiety. I can't meet new people. I can't be out there. And again, that's biological. This is actually in my book as well, that we need to feel not like an outcast. If you were outcast in back in our biological time, that meant you were dead. You're cast out of the cave. Your chances of survival are very little. So again, we're hardwired to need to be liked and to fit in and not be cast out. And that's not really going to happen to us anymore. Although today with social bullying and social media and all that stuff. And so that's why it's so important to be able to self-soothe so that it doesn't matter what anybody says. You know who you are. And life is a process of loving yourself and knowing that the very special flavor you bring to the world, that's what the world needs. And that's why you were born. And we try so hard to fit in and be like everybody else. And that's a vanilla, very boring place to be.
It is, and this is so perfectly timed for me personally. I'm a flight. I do not fight. I run.
Okay. Yeah.
And I had someone who was mad at me the other day, and I've been avoiding. And I know I shouldn't be avoiding. But in my brain, I've working on this. Decided that they're going to attack me. They're not going to attack me. I am physically safe. However, my brain is reacting as if I am in physical danger. And that's something that happens when we don't work on that anxiety early on. I've been doing that flight for so long that has now become how I react. And I know I need to work on it, but this is just so perfectly timed.
Well, and be gentle with yourself. Unfortunately, they don't teach us this in school. And we take everything so personally. And for me, if someone doesn't like me, that's a gift in that, like, well, this is probably not a person I want to hang out with. It's not personal. It's their stuff. It's personal to them. And I surround myself with, people that I feel good with.
Yeah, it's so important. And I love that mindset where it's not me, it's them. It's not my fault that someone decided they didn't like me. It's their reaction.
Yeah, it's like you're holding a set of cards in your hand and they're holding a different set of cards. And sometimes those cards make a great gin rummy together. And sometimes they just don't mix, but it's not personal that our cards don't fit each other, if that analogy makes sense.
Oh, it does. I love that analogy. My grandma always makes me play gin rummy with her. So love that
That's how I learned
analogy.
it too.
But with anxiety, it's so important, like to realize it's not always personal. Sometimes people may be mean, I will acknowledge that. But a lot of times we're just not meant to be friends with someone. Everyone doesn't have to like us. And in school, something that I remember, I guess not being directly taught, but you're kind of taught that you have to give everyone an invitation to your birthday party,
Right?
right? So you have to like everyone, and everyone has to come, and everyone has to like you. And then someone doesn't go to your birthday party, then it can feel very personal. And I just remember that's what I learned growing up, that everyone had to like me and I had to like everyone else. And when that started to collide and that wasn't the case anymore, I totally internalized it as something was wrong with me.
Well, it's interesting because you could have 30 kids from the class say yes, and one or two kids say no, and that's the part you remember.
Yeah.
You don't think, wow, 28 people or 30 people are coming to my party. That's awesome. We focus on that one little sticky ick, and we nurture it, and we pay attention to it, and we analyze it, and it is such a waste of our time and beautiful energy.
It is. We're so focused on that thing that hurt us, that more
Yeah.
negative situation, and that can really fester inside us. I know with me, that turned into, as I got older, if someone didn't come to my birthday party or someone didn't sit next to me in class anymore, they always sat next to me, then they went and sat next to someone else or at lunch. And now getting older, it's like someone doesn't answer my phone calls or my texts right away, and I'm internalizing it. Why aren't they answering? They're at work. They're at work. They're not ignoring me and hating me. But because I've so much internalized it and have to work through this, it is something that really can grow into this constant fear of why don't people like me?
Well, and forgetting that they have social anxiety too. Going and sitting next to someone is a bold move. Not going to a party might be because they're just afraid. And even when someone is mad at you, like literally, it's a fact they are mad. Um, Always under anger is fear, right? Because what is the fight mechanism? As we said earlier, that's a response to fear. So they're afraid they're not being heard, or they're not cared about, or a variety of things that we shouldn't even try and guess. But when someone's mad, they're scared. That's what animals do. If you're a cat, you perk up. Porcupines, they're firing off their quills. And so, you look at the state of the country, the world, which I try very hard to stay away from, just because anyway, I feel a lot of it has to do with money and power and blah, blah, blah. But um, all that anger, no matter what side it's coming from, it's based on fear. And when you go, gosh, you're scared, what are you afraid of? A person becomes way less frightening, right?
Yeah, I love that because it is based on fear. It's fear that, I mean, going back to this example, and I'm stuck on the example of people don't like me and that social anxiety, but it's based on that fear of what if someone doesn't like me? What does that
Right.
mean for me? And although it's okay, it's really hard when you're so conditioned to want everyone to like you,
Yeah.
which is part of being human.
And like I say, rejection is protection. I remember when someone first told me not everyone is going to like you, and I was like, oh, but it's like I don't like everybody. I like a lot of people, but I don't like everybody. And why do I want to be around someone who doesn't like me? What am I proving? Or is that just a whew, thanks for letting me know. I'm going to go over here and have a good time with my friends.
But yes, oh my goodness. So many people that I don't want to be around because we don't mix well. And to
Right?
me, that's okay. But if someone doesn't want to me, I'm internalizing it. It's so important to realize that we're all going through it in different ways.
Yeah. And that's ego, right? Our ego really wants to be liked, but self love, which is the opposite of ego, says that's okay. They don't have to like you. You don't like them. You're still a lovable person, as proven by the other 30 people who showed up at your birthday party.
That self-love, learning to talk to yourself with compassion and kindness is key. And we're talking about this. So I'm doing my master's in psych right now. And
Good for
one
you.
Thank you. And we're talking about self-esteem last night and how it's the extent to which you like yourself. And when we're so caught up in this fear of what everyone else thinks, it's hard to give ourselves that love that we deserve because we often internalize everyone else's opinion of us. And when we learn to communicate with kindness to ourselves and give ourselves some grace instead of focusing so much on everyone else's opinions, we can show up for ourselves and the people in our lives in a way that's helpful for all of us.
Yeah. There's a chapter in my book called The Inner Critic. And the sad reality is the things we say to ourselves are way worse than anyone has ever said to us. And if we could stop that, the rest of it wouldn't even matter.
Yeah, it is so true, that inner voice. I
Yeah.
know for me, I started doing this journal prompt constantly whenever I'm feeling like all these negative thoughts starting to come up. So for me, something that's really common is you're not doing enough, right?
Right.
You're not doing enough, or you're causing a problem by existing. So being able to
By
recognize
existing?
by existing, because
Oh my
so
gosh.
again, I know I have that brain that needs to be rewired. But
That's okay.
someone came up to me and said, "You mean well, but all you do is cause problems." And they were angry with a different situation, took it out on me. And like for me, that internalized it by existing. You're creating problems by being yourself and learning to recognize these thoughts. And that's what my brain is telling me. It's not, no one else is telling me your existence is a problem. That's what my brain has internalized and started saying. So that inner voice, being able to identify it, write it down, try to figure out what that purpose of that thought is, and rewrite it with some encouragement really has helped me kind of with that negative,
Yeah.
automatic negative thoughts that get really
Good
deep.
for you. Good for you. And so I often play with my clients a game called When He Said Such and Such, What Did You Hear? So when she or he or they said, you're trying to help, but you're just causing problems. What you heard is you shouldn't exist. So what you're doing to work that out is terrific. And then go back to the original thing, which is you're trying to help, but you're just causing problems. Because I like to take what people are telling me and go, okay, they know I'm trying to help. Like if someone said this to me, they know I'm trying to help, I'm causing problems. In what way am I causing problems? Because if that's true, if my goal isn't being goal oriented, what can I do differently? Like it may not be the most sweetly said constructive criticism, but if it is constructive, then I can look and go, okay, what can I do differently? Or even say to that person, okay, I hear what you're saying. How would you like to see that playing out? And if it fits with your sensibility, then you can course correct and you can help the way you wanted to. Um, or sometimes you get constructive criticism and you go, that just doesn't fit for me. I appreciate that feedback, and they're coming from a place of anger, fear. I understand what they're afraid of. That approach though isn't for me. So I'm going to let that go, because even if I had it to do over, I wouldn't do it that way. So again, just different cards. But hopefully you can take it as information that, like, okay, well, we're always growing, we're always learning, we always want to help. So, even though it's a bad message, the way the message came out, you can still find the pearl in there and make it work for you.
Yes, I love looking at it that way, because there are sometimes it can be so simple as, how can I help and how can I support you, would have been a better approach. And learning that not always to feel like you need to jump in. This situation, though, was over giving someone an airport ride and someone else feeling jealous that I was taking time from them spending time with the person, even though the person needed an airport ride. And if I took them or a Lyft, it was not going to matter when they said goodbye. So this one in the case was very silly. But in some cases, it is something, being able to say, you know what, I didn't have to step in that moment. You know what, that wasn't my place. Or I should have asked how I can help instead of making that assumption of doing what I would want. It's what they need. So there's definitely being able to look at it from different perspectives and see, is this something, like you said, I could constructive feedback, something I would do differently? And how could I do it differently instead of internalizing it like my brain likes to do and going
Right?
straight to worst thoughts you can. And that's that inner critic,
Yeah.
learning to change that.
And maybe both can be true. Maybe this person really did want you to take them to the airport. I doubt you like gagged them and threw them into your car, right? And maybe the other person was really sad not to spend time with that person, or felt rejected by that person, or felt less than, and you were the safe outlet for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's going back to anxiety and that response, right? It can come from fear, it can come from anger. And sometimes when we don't recognize that fear or that underlying emotion, it may come out as misdirected anger. It may come out in a way that isn't supportive. So recognizing when these triggers are happening, how we can sit with them for a second and respond with to ourselves with some kindness and compassion before responding to someone else with that immediate thought.
Yeah. Another concept that's in my book that I work with my clients on all the time is we have our wounded child inside our, and that could happen at any age, right? It's a child is just a term. And we have our capable adult self. So your wounded child, if I use your example, your wounded child hears you shouldn't exist, but your capable adult self says, sweetie, that's not true. You're a special, beautiful person. You're giving someone a ride to the airport. This person's just upset they don't. And you develop this relationship between your wounded child and your capable adult self, because we're always going to have those biologically programmed reactions. But then we don't have to navigate through those eyes. We can go, okay. And it only took me 50 years to figure it out. But you could develop this relationship with yourself that, like, if a little kid came to you and said, shouldn't even exist, would you say, that's probably true? No. What would you say to that child, that sweet, beautiful child who feels just so afraid that they made such a mistake? They want to disappear from Earth. And so recognizing, first of all, your wounded child and knowing how to deal with your capable adult self. But once you get good at that, you start recognizing other people's wounded children. And you go, oh, that's their wounded child. And wounded child usually triggers wounded child. But once you get used to those, like that person was coming from a wounded place, so it triggered your wounds. But when you start recognizing all these little children running around scared and wounded and reacting in the big girl world, you start to go, okay, I get it. I get it. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, being able to connect to that inner child and those early like core wounds, right? Where you first started to feel, where you felt that emotion maybe for the first time.
Yeah.
And being able to talk to yourself in that moment and what did you need to hear then? You may need to hear that now.
Yeah. And externalizing your wounded child so that you're actually looking at it like a little girl. Like take out and I hope I'm not using wrong identifiers here, but taking out that picture of yourself as a young child and talking to it, getting that picture in your mind.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I was having like a really anxious moment about going to practicum, right? That next big step. And how do
I
you
know
take
it
that
well.
step forward? So exciting. But how do you take that step forward? And how do you know what set you on? Are you going to be a good therapist for this population? All those fears that were coming up. And he told me to get a picture of myself from when I was younger and print it out. And what would she want? How would
Yes.
she feel about you getting to take this step? And
Yeah.
start looking at it like that instead of all these worries about the future and all the bad that could happen. How proud would you be of yourself right now? And it really helps when you look at yourself from that innocent angle of the person you just want to hug and tell that it's going to be okay too.
And that you're so proud of her. Look at her in practicum, tying your shoe was once a monumental task. And now look at you, you're going into practicum. That's huge.
Yeah, and it's being able to celebrate those things that even give us a little bit of anxiety or fear or worry instead of sitting in them and letting it just fester inside and ruin the experience for you.
Totally, totally. And I think sometimes we even confuse excitement for fear. I'm not a roller coaster person, but someone who doesn't like roller coasters and someone who does are both feeling the same exact thing. They're feeling the anticipation, they're feeling the ground leaving from underneath them, they're feeling themselves peak to that height and then that fly down at a half speed, at Mach speed. And one person's going, this is awesome. And another person's going, oh my God, get me off this thing. So we are getting that adrenaline dump. So if you're going to give a speech, which a lot of people are so afraid of, and you get that adrenaline dump, it's happening because your body has to be on. You need that extra adrenaline to do your show. And we interpret that as, oh my God, I'm nauseous, I can't do that. Or you can interpret it as, okay, I'm excited, I'm nervous, but I'm excited, and my body's getting ready for this. And so the way you interpret your body's symptoms are also really relevant to your journey. Although I haven't mastered that on the roller coaster yet, I'll be totally honest.
So true, our body does have that same response. So being able to recognize that maybe it is excitement, maybe it's a mix of both, and
Yes.
that's okay. It can
Yes. Well said.
coexist. That's something that's been really important for me, recognizing that different emotions can coexist, even if they seem opposite, because you can be really excited about something and really nervous about it. You can feel really happy, but also feel a little bit of grief towards
Yeah.
something that you thought you were going to have or what life was supposed to look like in your mind of what you had planned. So recognizing that it doesn't always have to be that more negative emotion and fear, it can be two things, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell people that I use pizza as an example. There's a part of me that loves to eat pizza. There's a part of me that hates that I'm eating pizza. A part of me gets excited. Part of me feels shame. And if you can feel that many things about a piece of pizza, imagine like big life things. And it changes. You got to just ride the waves of the different ways you feel.
I love all of your metaphors.
Oh,
By the
thank you.
way, these are
Thank you
amazing.
so much.
It's so true. Being able to recognize that with something so small, like a slice of pizza or going for a run, right? Sometimes we may really enjoy the whole idea of going for a run, and then you're running and like, why am I here? That's how I am at least. Why did I make this decision? And being able to recognize that things can coexist and that's okay, and being able to cope with both emotions at the same time or hold space for them so that you can feel everything that you're meant to feel. It's part of being human.
Yeah, there's no negative emotions. It's like saying there's a negative color of the rainbow, They're all
Mm.
serving a purpose.
They are all serving a purpose. Okay, we've talked or referenced your book a few times now, but can you tell people the name of the book and a little more about it?
Sure. It's called The Missing Piece, and that's like peace of mind, PEACE. Rewire your brain, reduce anxiety, and recreate your life. And I find there's a lot of books out there where therapists talk about cases and what they do in those situations. So I thought I would take a different approach since I really suffered with anxiety my entire life and found my way to a pretty blissful, exciting, wonderful life. What I do is each chapter is broken down into 3 parts. So the first part is a short bit about my life, like a story of my life, say, a little girl waiting outside of school and mom's not coming to come pick you up and all the things that go through your head. And then the second part is the tool or the reframe through a psychological lens, like the inner critic, to help you see that experience differently. And then the very last part, I actually give some exercises that you can do or not do so you can apply it to yourself. And it's available now for pre-order on Amazon, but you have to put my name into Amazon. You have to put Laura Rhodes-Levin, because when you put in the missing piece, it keeps correcting it to be Piece, and it's driving me crazy. So, but you can pre-order it now, and it comes out officially on May 7th. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I hope it's really relatable. I hope it's a little funny, and I hope everybody finds it to be helpful, because in my center and what I do, people say, "Oh, will you open up a place in Baltimore? Will you open up a place?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want to open up places all over. I'm tired." But so I'm hoping the book really gets out there for the people who need it, and they really enjoy it and have a new lens on life, and realizing there's so much more beyond the anxiety, like creating your life with that. It's sort of like using that Jedi power for the good instead of, going to the dark side.
Oh, I love that. And I love how you bring your personal experience and story into it because I think a lot of times with therapists, people kind of see them as someone who's never struggled, right? As someone who's not human. And being able to say that I've been through this too, these tools have helped me, and I'm so excited to share them with you, I think really makes it more personal for people to say, like, I should try this. This may actually really help me or be a great starting point because he understands. He's been there too, and I think that's just really powerful.
Thank you. And I understand. And you, as a therapist, you understand, right? Because you've been through your stuff, and that's why you're wanting to help other people.
It's so, so powerful when we get to see the story behind a therapist. Laura, you've been absolutely incredible today. Thank you so much for
Oh, thank
joining
you.
me.
You too. And you are so beautiful. And thank you for being a fellow healer.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.